this country is in a so much better place, more prosperous place with President Trump at the helm. Numbers do not lie. Let's take a trip down memory lane and contrast with President Obama's horrific economic track record. It saw virtually no growth, record high distribution of food stamps. 13 million more Americans were on food stamps. 8 million more Americans were in poverty. We had the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst home ownership rate in 51 years, the worst recovery since the 40s, and he doubled the national debt. Yeah, that was Barack Obama's record. We'll get back to all this major news on the economic front later in the show. But now we got to turn to some other breaking news tonight, and this is huge, from John Solomon. His brand new bombshell report, the FBI's efforts to monitor the Trump campaign actually originated months before the FBI authorized the counterintelligence investigation into so-called Russian election interference. This after, quote, foreign figures contacted Trump campaign advisors and provided the FBI with hearsay allegations of Trump-Russia collusion. Now, according to John Solomon, these foreign figures, including some of the trusted intelligence sources and even some Hillary Clinton supporters. In other words, what this means is members of the deep state, that upper echelon that we talk about, Clinton sycophants, they were literally flooding the FBI with lies, unverified, uncorroborated, anti-Trump material. And there's more. Remember the lovebirds, Strzok and Page? John Solomon tonight has uncovered a series of new texts from these two anti-Trump FBI officials that show the Obama administration was likely involved in steering this investigation against the Trump campaign, including one text that took place as the FBI was opening their investigation into so-called Russian meddling, where Lisa Page writes, quote, "We're not going to withstand the pressure soon." And then Page and Strzok also expressing fears that Obama would, quote, hijack their investigation or leak details to the press. And in another text from Peter Strzok, he indicated that the Obama administration was very much involved in the FBI investigation, writing, quote, "The White House," meaning the Obama White House, "is running this." So what did Obama know? When did he know it? What did his inner circle know? When did they know it? It's now time to put the former president and his entire team under oath. Now, Sarah Carter, also tonight, another new report and bombshell detailing the possible connection between an international spying alliance called the Five Eyes. You can't put this in a novel. And the rampant surveillance of the Trump campaign. It's even bigger than we thought. After all, as Solomon and Carter both reported, the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, remember, it originated abroad in London. Now, the United Kingdom is a key member of this Five Eyes alliance. And despite all of this, you got the lunatic, former communist, former CIA director under Obama, John Brennan, now calling President Trump paranoid for expressing concerns over deep state spying. We already know it's true. How could it be paranoid? Sounds like he's very defensive. Take a look.
I think Mr. Trump has demonstrated a paranoia and insecurity, as well as a real concern about the investigation that is underway. Certainly his tweets do not seem like they're coming from a person of innocence and confidence. Mr. Trump is going to promote his narrative. He certainly is going to continue to try to discredit the FBI and the CIA and others. But I think, make no mistake about it, the American justice system, I think, is going to prevail in this endeavor to get to the bottom of who might have been collaborating and working with foreign actors to try to undermine the integrity of the election.
All right, remember, this is the same John Brennan who went on national TV a few months ago and told the world that Donald Trump should be very, very worried. Sounds like a deep state threat. Take a listen.
I think he's afraid of the president of Russia.
Why?
Well, I think one can speculate as to why. That the Russians may have something on him personally that they could always roll out and make his life more difficult. Clearly, I think it's important for us to be able to improve relations with Russia. But the fact that he has had this fawning attitude toward Mr. Putin has not said anything negative about him. I think continues to say to me that he does have something to fear.
All right, putting John Brennan's blind contempt and hatred for President Trump aside, we have even more revelations to bring you showing that the deep state is starting to crack. According to a new report, the Wall Street Journal's Kim Strassel, there are now serious issues with the FBI's, quote, Papadopoulos, who nobody ever heard of, and that narrative after the alleged informant in the case publicly contradicted the FBI's own claims that the one-time low-level Trump advisor discussed the hacked Democratic emails. And remember, the now infamous 2016 Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump Jr., a Russian lawyer, a Russian-American lobbyist, and a few others? Oh, we have new information recently unearthed, a transcript from a 2017 Senate hearing that the Russian-American lobbyist admitted to personally knowing Hillary Clinton and some of the people who worked in her campaign. So what was someone who knew Hillary Clinton doing in that meeting? Is the media going to report on that? It's unbelievable. Gets more insane every day. We'll have more on this also later in the show. Also tonight, let's turn to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. You know, the guy that said Comey should be fired, the guy that signed the last FISA warrant based on the phony dossier that Clinton bought and paid for. She used a foreign agent to put together, funneling money through a law firm, then to GPS, then to the foreign agent. Russian lies, Russian government lies to manipulate you, the American people. Well, last night we showed you how Rosenstein's clear conflicts of interest surrounding this ongoing Russia probe, specifically, you know, his key role in firing Comey. He's witness A in that whole investigation, and he's the one that appointed Mueller. Now, finally, people in D.C. are getting what we have been telling you. There are growing calls tonight for Rod Rosenstein to recuse himself. That includes Senator Lindsey Graham. Welcome aboard, Senator. He is asking three very important questions. Quote, do you consider yourself a potential witness in the Mueller investigation regarding the firing of Director Comey by President Trump? If not, why not? He recommended it. Yeah, he's a witness. And if so, by the way, you should recuse yourself from further interactions with oversight of the Mueller investigation. Thankfully, finally, someone saying what we have been saying and calling for over and over for months. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, it's time for you to answer those questions. We know the answers, and then recuse yourself and get out of the way, because you are the most conflicted person in all of this, not the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. And by the way, great news for me tonight. Pay close attention. Remember when Senator Chuck Schumer said that you better not mess with the intel community because they're going to get you 6 ways to Sunday? This is great news for me. Best-selling author Jerome Corsi. He's the author of this book. It's out now in bookstores, on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. It's called Killing the Deep State. You might remember him. He was back. Remember the group against John Kerry, Vietnam Vets for Truth? He was one of them. He's saying that yours truly, that I, Sean Hannity, am the next target of the deep state. Wow, isn't it so great to know that these corrupt officials with their backs against the wall, that are desperate people do desperate things, the people that have the most powerful tools of intelligence, they're now going after me. Okay, really? So sadly, after all we have learned, you know, now we have Jerome Corsi's prediction. It doesn't surprise me. Isn't that sad? Are we the United States of America, or are we going to be the former Soviet Union, or are we going to be Venezuela? I promise you this one thing. It
was the first time that President Trump has met an official from North Korea. The former head of Pyongyang's spy agency, Kim Jong-chul, a man who's actually been sanctioned by the United States, came calling at the White House today. And after 75 minutes together in the Oval Office, the two produced a breakthrough.
We'll be meeting on June 12th in Singapore. It went very well. It's really a get-to-know-you kind of a situation.
In one historic moment, President Trump and the highest-ranking North Korean official to visit the White House in 18 years put the summit back on track. President Trump today optimistic that Kim Jong-un is committed to denuclearization.
I think they want to do that. I know they want to do that. They want other things along the line. They want to develop as a country.
A week ago, President Trump shocked North Korea and the world, sending a letter to Kim Jong-un canceling the summit. It was a high-wire diplomatic move, but one the president insists paid off.
I canceled it in response to a very tough statement, and I think we're over that.
Kim Jong-chul came to the White House today with a letter, this one from Kim Jong-un, which he hand-delivered to President Trump. At first, the president seemed to indicate he had read it.
It was a very interesting letter, and at some point it may be appropriate, and maybe I'll be able to give it to you. Maybe you'll be able to see it, and maybe fairly soon.
But later said he hadn't.
I haven't seen the letter yet. I purposely didn't open the letter. I haven't opened it. I didn't open it in front of the director. I said, would you want me to open it? He said, you can read it later. I may be in for a big surprise, folks.
The meeting was supposed to be brief. White House officials said Kim would arrive, walk down the colonnade to the Oval Office, deliver the letter, then leave. But the meeting went a full hour and 15 minutes, the president and the vice chairman seeming to enjoy a very courteous relationship. The president lowered expectations for his meeting with Kim Jong-un, saying it would likely be just the start of a long negotiation.
We'll see where it leads, but we're going to be June 12th. We'll be in Singapore. It'll be a beginning. I don't say, and I've never said it happens in one meeting. You're talking about years of hostility, years of problems, years of really hatred between so many different nations.
But the president added, well, just maybe the United States and North Korea would sign an agreement on June 12th to finally end the Korean War.
We talked about ending the war. And, you know, this war has been going on. It's got to be the longest war, almost 70 years. That's something that could come out of the meeting.
One possible hiccup in all of this, the meeting yesterday between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Kim Jong-un. President Trump's initial reaction to that, he didn't like it one bit.
I didn't like the Russian meeting yesterday. I said, what's the purpose of that? But it could be a positive meeting. If it's a positive meeting, I love it. If it's a negative meeting, I'm not happy.
President Trump also revealed today that he had an entirely new package of sanctions ready to go against North Korea in the case that the summit fell apart. Those are on hold for now, but the president is keeping them in his back pocket just in case things go off the rails before June 12th.
Liberals trying to hammer President Trump on immigration only to have this backfire in a big way. It turns out the article that they were tweeting from a paper in Arizona, it showed pictures of immigrant children in cages. Well, this was actually from 2014 during President Obama's term, not President Trump's. They quickly deleted those tweets, their mistakes. But are they still just as outraged now that they find out that it wasn't the president, the current president? Here now to debate that, Talk America radio contributor Kimberly Klasick and Democratic strategist David Morey. Guys, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
David, I want to start with you. This article now is 4 years old. I don't remember a lot of outrage when this article came out at the time, and these tweets have since been deleted. How do you defend that?
Well, I think that it sounds like they were wrong. They should say they were wrong. Yep. This issue, Rob, is one of many administrations. The Bush administration, the Obama administration brought illegal immigration down substantially. So has the Trump administration. It's kicked back up. This is about polarization more than policy, and it divides ourselves one part against another. It ignites one extreme against another. And we see that the blame, I'm saying, is everywhere. Multiple administrations, Congress, the White House, Democrats, Republicans. And if we merely abrogate to the states and the courts, Rob, we're not going to necessarily like the solution that happens. The administration may not like the solution that happens, and it'll continue to ignite ourselves. We need a bipartisan bill after these midterms.
Okay, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about in the immigration debate. Kimberly, I want to go over to you. When this article came out, do you recall anybody being outraged at these pictures? Do you remember a big backlash? It seems, though, that maybe this was what they call selective outrage because the president, the current president, is responsible. People got mad, and maybe now they're not.
Yeah, no, I never even heard of this article until it came out recently, falsely. So unfortunately, we live in a time where the climate is that we're going to smear President Trump and his administration at all costs. So you have liberals and anti-Trumpers doing whatever they can, even inadvertently ruling out their ounce of credibility just to take him down. Sean King, for him to post this photo from 2014, this should end his career. He, not long ago, I would say probably a month ago, posted about a Texas police officer allegedly sexually harassing and raping a woman as he apprehended her. It turned out that that was false, and luckily they had body cams to prove that. So I asked, in 2014, why wasn't President Obama held accountable for these photos? In 2010, President Obama had all three branches of government. He could have done something about DACA and immigration, and he decided not to. And I have to point out, many Democrats decided to vote against the issues as well.
David, over to you. I want to show you this response tweet after Linda Sarsour, who's a very polarizing figure in this country in the first place. She deleted the initial tweet from Sunday, and then she posted this. No amnesia here. Our immigration system is a disaster and was a disaster long before Trump came along. Now it will become increasingly worse under this white supremacist administration who have made their hatred for immigrants crystal clear. Is that a fair response in your opinion?
No, of course not. I mean, it's back to my first point. This is political extremism, polarization, one side against another. I mean, in fairness, Kimberly, you know, the Trump administration is not just the only people getting smeared. They're doing a little bit of smearing themselves. This has become a political issue. The president's gone hard to his base. He's over-serving his base, probably more than any president in history. And that's solidifying the base, but it's not necessarily solving the problem. I'd love to see, after these bloody midterms, Rob, a bill that has names on it like McCain and Graham, a bipartisan bill that gets to a solution as opposed to everyone accusing everyone else of all kinds of smears.
Working between the aisle. Remember those days? How novel that was.
Long time ago.
Hey, Kimberly, I want to ask you real quick. Is this a clear picture of how polarized we've become, that it almost seems like people are only angry when something is done by somebody from the other team? When their guy does it, they don't really care?
Absolutely. And I have to say, Dave, I understand, but you have to admit that President Trump is taking the brutal beating here way more than Obama has. And I just ask going forward that these self-proclaimed journalists just do some fact-checking and research before dragging people for their narrative and their agenda.
Lots of beating going on here.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. That was a great discussion on this topic. We appreciate it.